Shutter speeds can range from short exposures, like a thousandth of a second, all the way to minutes on some cameras. With moving subjects, short shutter speeds freeze motion. Longer shutter speeds introduce blur. In very long exposures, typically made with the aid of a tripod, moving objects like cars and people can disappear altogether. The longer the shutter is open, the more tiny movements from your hands cause the image to blur. This is known as camera shake. The effect is proportional. The longer the focal length of the lens, the smaller the angle of view, so hand movement is magnified. A 30mm wide-angle lens should be used at a 30th of a second or less to avoid camera shake. A 250mm lens needs to be handheld at a shutter speed of a 250th of a second or less. Use a shutter speed that is the same as the focal length of the lens or less to prevent camera shake. The aperture also has an important creative role. The wider the aperture, the softer background and foreground areas look. This effect, known as depth of field, means focusing becomes more critical as wide apertures are used. A wide aperture can help to separate a subject from other clutter in the frame. A narrower aperture can help to keep the faces of people in a group sharp. Depth of field effects vary with the length of lens you use. A telephoto lens has a much shallower depth of field than a wide angle at the same aperture. So if you're struggling to keep various parts of an image sharp, you could switch to a wider lens. The relationship between the shutter speed and the aperture is reciprocal. In other words, give and take. If you shorten the shutter speed by a stop, you open the aperture by a stop to maintain the same exposure level.